4, 3, 2, 1, go. Hey guys, Ryan here, StarCraft commentary. This is going to be the second set between Wemade Fox and SKT1 T1. This is going to be between Pure, playing for Wemade, of course, and Fantasy playing for T1. It's going to be on Icarus, 4-player map here at the 3 o'clock position in purple as Protoss. We're going to have Pure, and the 9 o'clock position in yellow as the We're going to have Fantasy. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys 2 sets from this series, the 2 matchups that interested me. And I'm not going to bring you the entire thing because that's freaking time consuming. And this way I hope I'll be able, for the most part, avoid major spoilers. But these are at least 2 matchups that I'm going to bring you guys that I deem possibly interesting. I'm also going to commentate on the 3rd set. Now, I do not know the winners of the series or anything like that. I don't know who wins what. The results above unfortunately spoil the 1st set, but you know, you take what you can, I guess. And hopefully we're in here for some interesting games. Fantasy, TVP-wise, definitely not his best. I'm not sure if I would call this his best matchup. I think that's TVT by far. And TVP, though, he's really proficient at it. He really knows how to play it. And it's one of the matchups he's always been solid in. Like back in the day, his TVZ really was his Achilles heel. Although I think he's kind of fixed that lately, and he's become overall a solid player. Now, on the opposite side, we have Pure, very good PvT player. I've really seen this guy play insanely good PvT. Has a very good career in the OSL lately. I think he's been getting to the round of 8 or the semifinals fairly well. Just the last few OSL seasons, 2 or 3 OSL seasons, he's been getting into the at least quarterfinals, I believe, every single time. Not 100% sure, but he's definitely gotten past the round 16 a couple of times, I think. And for a guy that I think about a year and a half ago was pretty much a no-name, as far as I know, I think it's a very good result. Getting past that round of 16 in the OSL can be very tough, but at the same time, it sometimes brings out the best in certain people, that they get to play a lot of different people on different maps, a lot of different races, and sometimes that just ends up letting them alleviate the pressure. But once they get into those best of 3s, best of 5s against one particular player that generally would be thought to be stronger than them, they just can't quite perform at the level they should be able to. But Pure has sometimes just been able to overcome that bug. I do believe a few seasons ago he had an epic series against Lida, and I believe the round of 36 of, I don't quite remember what OSL. I think it might have been the last Bacchus OSL, 2009 Bacchus, I think it was. I think it might have been that. But yeah, go to Nuke's channel for those, of course, very awesome games. But I think I should talk about what's actually going on. Did see a barracks coming up and a factory on the way as well for Fantasy. On the opposite side, GC Pure getting in here with a probe, trying to be a little bit annoying. Has a Zealot out there working on tech, it seems. Just has a Summoner's Crew going out. Probably going to get a couple of Dragoons and then maybe fast expand off of it. Do see a 1 factory build on the opposite side, as I already said. Not really a wall off, but kind of a little position there for the Marines to just run around, and the probe being forced out with minimal health, and of course a couple sitting there in a lovely embrace and being totally embarrassed. The robotics facility coming out here early for Pure, seeing as how he got the scout in, got a very nice scout in with this probe. I don't know if this is going to be for observers. I think this actually might be for Reavers. Reavers recently had become more popular, and kind of a resurgence in Reavers. CV might think he's gonna barely get away. Yikes. That's barely getting that scout away. Dragoon still, yes, is gonna get 1 more shot in. On the opposite side, see that probe trying to barely sneak in. 3 Marines out there on the side. Another Marine on the ridge, though. So probe's not gonna be able to sneak back inside. We're gonna see whether Pure's actually gonna try to go for observers on this. Just try to get quick observers anyway, to make sure he knows what his opponent's doing at all times, because sometimes certain players can switch up. With those 4 Marines out there, I assume Pure's going to just want to work, get a siege tank, get a couple of siege tanks out there, and push out. Do see an observatory out there, so Pure playing very safe. Not sure if he's going to convert this into Reavers quite right afterwards, or just going to expand off of it. I assume that's going to be what he does. Just get rid of the observatory, expand quickly off of that, then start getting some more gateways out there. 1 single probe, just planning out pylons out there to make sure if he does get dropped later on in the game, he at least has a 2-second warning or so. Dizzy 1 tank and 5 Marines now pushing out. Seems like Fantasy's only going to go, maybe just going to go for a soft push, but it seems like he's just going to stick around and play more defensively. Going to plant his expansion down the SCV, going out with another SCV scout. This might be stopped yet again. Dragoon and a Zealot, just SCV just not going to be able to get through at all. Stopped dead in their tracks. So Fantasy still with no scout inside of Pure's base this entire game. He's going to have to wait for his academy to get out there so he can start getting some scans off. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, do see Pure getting his first observer out there. That's also going to help against these mines. I think that's actually also a very good idea, just to get the observatory early on, just because Fantasy is so well known for his incredibly strong mine play, going heavy vultures and just surprising you at all times and getting a lot of mines all over the place. And of course, Dragoons especially have a ridiculous amount of trouble with mines. Both players putting down their natural expos, and this is a 4-player map, and every expansion is a gas expansion, although the corner expos, the upper right, upper left, lower right, lower left, they're fairly hard to defend because there's one single entrance into them, I believe. So unless you got a pretty tough defense, you could find yourself in a little bit of trouble. At the same time, you know, if a person tries to push in there with not a big enough force, you could just backdoor him into that base and completely crush him, make sure they don't have any escape mechanism. But at the same time, if there's a heavy push coming into your corner expansions, you could end up being in a lot of trouble. But at the same time, that upper left-hand expansion is going to allow Fantasy, or rather, he's actually going to expand to the lower right or left, it seems, or that's just a random floating building checking stuff out. I think actually expand to the upper left-hand would be safer, and it just allows him to put down a long defensive grid, a lot of mines, a lot of tanks, which means that a third base for a Terran player is fairly easy to take against Protoss on this map, or that humongous defensive grid being possible. That just kind of allows him to stretch out a little bit more. But if the Protoss wants to go for attack on any base, he's going to have to go for a pretty big attack on the ground, pretty big groundus. What am I saying? I have no idea what the hell. My tongue tied. Tongue is tied. What does that mean anyway? Random vulture gonna die to some Dragoons. Another player already go for any aggressive maneuvers, and I'm not expecting them to. Both players, Pure in particular, is a very big macro player, especially in this matchup. He loves the macro game, and never count him out, I think, against the Terran player, especially. He's taken players of very high caliber out before. I think Fantasy's definitely not, you know, an impossible target for him, and he's definitely capable of taking a player of Fantasy's caliber out. Armory on the way as well for Fantasy. Additional factories on the way. Seems like mines being cleared a little bit. And finally, Pure going to pick up his third. He's going to have to out-expand his Terran opponent if he wants to have a shot macro-wise to keep up with him. Only has 2 gateways out so far. He's going to be focused on expos so far. Has those observers out there, so you might try to slowly go around to clear up some of these mines. Just going to try to figure out the defensive posture of his opponent. More factories on the way. Just the third one right now for Fantasy. So he's been playing very defensively, very economically, very safe. No early push or anything from him. Just trying to play it safe. But he has a couple of siege tanks back here. A couple of mines being cleared up by those Dragoons. But he took a couple of shots from those siege tanks. One Dragoons lost all of his shields. They're going to be forced to go back home and complain to their executor for almost sending them on a suicide mission. It's never fun when you get sent to a suicide mission. Temple Archives and Stargate on the way for Pure. So yeah, off his third base, going for the Arbor. Fairly standard stuff. And Fantasy wearing a shirt that I do not recognize as T1 shirts. Kind of striped and purple and gray. But I recognize the Craze Burgers thing. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Starport on the opposite side, so we're going to be seeing some heavy teching on the way. Are going to be seeing some science vessels, of course. This is Interpolate, very necessary. Fantasy now already pushing out. He's finally going to start up his defensive grid, so it does seem like he's going to want to expand towards the upper left-hand position. Siege tanks, then followed up by mines at the front, some missile turrets to help out. Very standard stuff overall. Wondering whether we're going to see Pure go for some shuttles just for some of those Zealot bombs. Those turrets, they're going to be harder for them to land, but still they help. Also, the observers, of course, under constant danger because of those turrets down the ground. Nice pylon placement here at the lower right. It just completely blocks it off. That's one way. That's the easy way for Protoss to kind of block it off. Just plant a couple of pylons, get a forge, get a couple of cannons behind those pylons just to make sure those vultures don't become pesky. You don't have to maneuver some Dragoons around just to get rid of a few vultures that want to go in and harass a little bit. Do see the forge coming up right now, so it seems like exactly what he has in mind. Arbor Tribunal just now coming up, so we're going to be seeing some Arbors on the way soon. Academy, very late from Fantasy, actually. He is getting an additional command, so it seems like he's going to want to float towards the upper left hand, as I've said already a million times. But very late Academy, and I'm actually wondering if this entire game he's actually did get any sort of scout inside of Pure Base, because I really don't think he had. He just has had